Bang! A man in a blood-streaked Armani suit collapsed at her trailer door. His knuckles scraped, his temple bleeding. In one shaking hand, a crumpled diner receipt. In the other, a photograph of an elderly couple smiling in the sun. "You," he rasped. "You paid for their lunch." Cassie froze. Her coffee mug slipped from her hand and shattered. They were my parents. She didn't even remember their names. Yesterday had been like any other. Sticky floors. Burned bacon. A full shift at Dolly's diner, where hope came with fries, and dreams were served lukewarm. She had spotted the couple huddled at booth 6. Old school types. Thin coats, careful eyes, holding hands like they'd seen too much. When it came time to pay, the man patted his chest and said softly, "I think we left our wallet in the car." Cassie didn't ask questions. She just slid her own card through the machine. "It's on me," she smiled. They had protested. She waved them off. "Happens to the best of us." It was nothing. Until this morning. Now, this stranger lay bleeding on her floor, gasping like he'd just clawed his way out of something terrible. "I'm Adrian Cole," he said, pressing the receipt into her hand. Her name was scrawled at the bottom, right where she'd signed the check. "You bought them lunch," he said. They never forgot that. Cassie knelt beside him, unsure whether to grab a towel or run. "What happened to them?" Adrian stared at the ceiling, jaw clenched. "They died last week. Cabin fire in Vermont. I hadn't spoken to them in 5 years." He pulled the photo closer, eyes reddening. "But they left you everything." Cassie blinked. "What?" Adrian pushed a torn envelope toward her. Inside, a will. Legal. Stamped. Witnessed. To Cassandra Ray, waitress at Dolly's Diner. They had left her their land. 32 acres. A house. A note, for kindness without an audience. "I don't understand," Cassie said. "I didn't even know them." "Neither did I," Adrian muttered. By afternoon, she was in his car, riding north past frostbitten trees and dead cell service. Adrian didn't talk much. He drove like he had a ghost in the back seat. The Vermont property was at the edge of nowhere. A gravel road turned to dirt. Then came the house, an old colonial thing, like someone had peeled it out of a black and white photo. Paint chipped. Porch sagging. Chimney blackened. This was theirs? Cassie asked. He nodded. Inside was silence, thick, settled silence. Like time had stopped caring. Photos lined the mantel. One of the couple. Another of Adrian as a boy. Then a family portrait. But Adrian's face had been cut out. Cassie stepped into the kitchen. Everything was still there, dishes stacked neatly, 2 mugs by the sink. One half full. She shivered. Why would they give this to me, she asked. Adrian stood in the doorway, unreadable. They never forgave me. Maybe they thought you deserved a better legacy than I ever gave them. Cassie turned to the fireplace. Ashes still cold. What happened between you? Adrian rubbed his temples. Too much. Money. Decisions. I bought out my father's company. Then sold it. He said I sold the soul of the family. We never spoke again. He sat at the table, his hands still shaking. I don't think they ever stopped waiting for someone to care. You gave them 5 minutes of grace. That was more than I did in 5 years. Cassie walked upstairs. The master bedroom was untouched. The bed still made. A rosary hung on the headboard. On the nightstand, a tin box. She opened it. Inside was a burned photograph, just the corner survived. Her face. At the diner. Laughing. Cassie stumbled back. Adrian. He came up, saw the photo. Froze. That's from our security camera, she said. At the register. He stared at it. It's dated 3 days before they met you. Cassie's blood turned to ice. That night, Cassie couldn't sleep. She walked the woods, flashlight in hand, boots crunching frost. Something tugged at her. At the edge of the property stood an old chapel. Burned out. Charred wood and shattered glass. She stepped inside. The air reeked of gasoline. Someone had torched it recently. She found a melted ring on the altar. It wasn't in the fire report. This wasn't part of the cabin fire. This was separate. Intentional. Cassie turned to leave. And saw the figure in the trees. Watching. Back at the house, Adrian paced the porch. We shouldn't be here. Not at night. Cassie handed him the ring. Someone burned that chapel. He stared at it. Then looked toward the woods. Daniel Cross, he said, almost to himself. Who's that? Old enemy of my father's. Said we stole the land from him. Sued us 3 times. Lost every time. Swore he'd make us pay one day. Why would he come after me? Because now this land's yours, Adrian said. And if he thinks there's still something buried here, he'll come for it. Cassie felt the ground shift beneath her. What would be worth burning a chapel for? Adrian didn't answer. But that night, he boarded the doors. Nailed the windows. And somewhere in the forest, someone lit a match. By dawn, the sky was copper, and the air thick with the scent of smoke that didn't belong to breakfast. Cassie woke on the living room couch, shotgun leaned against the wall, Adrian asleep in the armchair with a fire poker clutched in one hand. They hadn't slept much. The woods outside had whispered. The chapel was still smoldering. They walked the perimeter at sunrise. Tracks heavy boots. Circular patterns. Someone had been circling the house in the dark. Daniel, Adrian said again, under his breath. Cassie squinted into the trees. Why now? Adrian didn't answer. Instead, he led her behind the house. There, between 2 pine trees, a rusted plaque half buried in moss. Cole Family Trust. EST 1902. You think there's something out here? Adrian nodded. My father always hinted the land wasn't just sentimental. Said it had history worth protecting. Never told me what. Just said I wouldn't understand. They hiked deeper. A mile in, the trees opened to a clearing. A broken fence. Scorched grass. Cassie froze. That's where the chapel was. Adrian frowned. No. This is something else. They stepped into the center. Burn marks formed a ring around a stone slab. Cassie bent down, brushing aside pine needles. A carving. Old. Worn. Latin. Adrian squinted. Terra Custodet. The land guards. He looked around. Cassie stared at the soil. Whatever they were guarding, someone wants it gone. Back at the house, Cassie searched the attic. Dust, cobwebs, trunks of old photos, but one drawer didn't open. She pried it with a crowbar. Inside, a sealed envelope, a gold coin wrapped in cloth, and a folded hand-drawn map. The letter read. If you're reading this, we're likely gone. Don't trust the courts. Don't trust the Cross family. This land holds more than memory. Guard it well. Dig nowhere unless you mean to finish what we started. And if Daniel comes, do not let him inside. V. and J. Cole. Cassie held up the coin. Etched with a pine tree, and on the edge, the phrase, Veritas sub radicibus, truth beneath the roots. She took it downstairs. Adrian held it in his palm. His hand trembled. That's it. That's the coal seal. Only passed down once a generation. Cassie swallowed. Why would they give it to me? He looked at her, not with resentment, but a kind of sad respect. Because they trusted you more than me. Before she could speak, there was a knock at the door. Slow. Rhythmic. They both froze. Adrian peeked through the curtain. Don't open it, Cassie whispered. He already was. A man in a tan overcoat stood on the porch, smiling wide, teeth too perfect. Cassie Ray, he asked politely. She didn't speak. I'm Daniel Cross. He held out a manila envelope. I'm here on behalf of the Cross family estate. I believe you're in possession of property that belongs to us. Adrian stepped between them. You need to leave. Daniel didn't even flinch. Adrian. Still playing bodyguard, I see. You know the history. This land was ours before your great-grandfather cheated it away with a forged deed and whiskey bribes. No court ever proved that, Adrian said. Daniel leaned closer. No court ever dug deep enough. Cassie stepped forward. What do you want? Daniel smiled at her. Justice. The land. Everything beneath it. Then his smile faded. You should know, the chapel wasn't the first fire. He turned and walked away. That night, Cassie dreamed of fire. But when she woke, the window was open, and something was missing from the mantel. The photo. The one with Adrian's parents. Someone was inside, she whispered. Adrian checked the doors. Locked. No sign of break-in. But the footprints were there. Leading from the woods to the porch. And back. That morning, Cassie found a fresh carving in the bark of the nearest tree. I see you. Adrian wanted to leave. Cassie refused. This isn't your fight anymore, he said. She shoved the letter into his chest. It is now. 3 days passed. No sign of Daniel. But something had changed in the woods. The animals were gone. No birdsong. No rustle. Just stillness. Cassie studied the map. It led to a tree marked with an X, near the property's edge. Beneath it, according to a note in the margin, was a hatch. They hiked out. Dug down. Metal. A trapdoor. Cassie pried it open. A staircase descended into black. They lit a lantern. Stepped down. Underground, a tunnel. Brick walls. Cold air. At the end, a door. Behind it, a vault. Inside the vault, wooden crates, sealed tight. They opened the first. Gold bars. Old. Marked with symbols Cassie didn't recognize. And a folder on top. Inside, deeds, letters, bank notes. Stamped, confidential, dating back to 1947. This, Adrian whispered, this is what he's after. Cassie stared at the rows of crates. This is what they left me to protect. But before they could close the vault. A sound. Upstairs. The hatch. Closing. Then footsteps overhead. They weren't alone. Adrian turned off the lantern. Cassie reached for the shotgun. Silence. Then the sound of dragging metal. Daniel had sealed the hatch. They were trapped. The air in the vault was thick and still. Cold crept up their spines like it had teeth. Cassie pressed her ear to the hatch above. No footsteps. No sound. Just the weight of silence and one hard truth. Daniel had sealed them in. Adrian examined the walls with his phone light. The foundations solid. Reinforced. This isn't just a vault, it was meant to last. Cassie studied the crates. So was whatever they put in here. They opened more. Some were filled with weapons, old, oiled, and foreign. Not American military issue. Others held maps of the Northeast, marked with red circles. Cassie flipped through a ledger, dates, times, coordinates. Adrian read over her shoulder. This was a Cold War cache. Hidden under a family estate. They were storing gold, documents, maybe for a government that no longer exists. Cassie found another envelope. No stamp. Just the initials VC and a folded note inside. If you're reading this, Daniel knows. He's never stopped searching. He burned the truth once. He'll burn again. The gold is bait. The real legacy is beneath it. Use the coin. Cassie pulled the coin from her pocket. Veritas sub redicibus. She ran her fingers around the rim. It clicked. Then rotated. Adrian stepped back as the coin unlocked a latch on the wall behind them. A narrow passage opened. Cassie lit the lantern again. They walked forward, through the narrow tunnel. It ended in a stone chamber. And on the wall, a painting. Not a canvas. A mural, fresco style, ancient in tone. At its center, a tree with roots that curled around shapes, gold bars, books, a bleeding heart, and what looked like a body wrapped in white linen. Cassie stared at the inscription beneath it. The land remembers what men forget. She turned to Adrian. Your parents weren't hiding treasure. They were hiding history. Then they heard the explosion. The ground trembled. The air sucked out of the tunnel. Smoke poured back through the passage. Back to the vault, Adrian shouted. They reached it just in time. Fire licked the edges of the tunnel behind them. Cassie slammed the steel door shut and sealed it. Adrian collapsed, coughing. He's trying to destroy it. Everything. Cassie shook her head. He doesn't want to destroy it. He wants to erase it. Burn the truth so no one ever knows what this place really was. Hours passed before they found another exit, a rusted ladder leading to a stone trapdoor beneath the old well near the barn. Cassie climbed out first. The forest was dark again. The fire hadn't reached the trees. But the barn was ash. And carved in the dirt near the well. Final warning. Cassie paced the porch, fingers tight on the shotgun. He's escalating. Adrian poured a glass of water with shaking hands. Because he's close. He knows you found the vault. He just doesn't know what's inside. Cassie looked toward the trees. Then let's not let him guess. She went into the attic. Pulled down the coin. The map. The ledger. And the original deed to the land. That night, she and Adrian stayed up till dawn building a case. The coal land wasn't just family soil. It was one of 6 known Cold War emergency stashes for government officials who never needed it. The gold. The documents. The evidence. It proved that the land had been deemed sovereign in a 1953 classified order. Daniel's family had been cut out, deliberately. And the cross-patriarch? He hadn't just lost the land. He had betrayed the project. Cassie stared at a scanned confession, signed and sealed in 1961. Her hands trembled. He sold out the location. And tried to burn the evidence. Adrian pointed at the final ledger entry. Look at the date. It was from last year. Handwritten. If anything happens to us, she gets it all. Cassie Ray. Booth 6. Cassie swallowed hard. Adrian stepped back, stunned. They planned this. Your act of kindness, it was the last test. You passed. I didn't. Before Cassie could speak, a rock smashed through the front window. A note tied to it. Tomorrow. Dusk. The tree line. Or everything burns. The next day was a war of nerves. Cassie spent the morning digging near the chapel ruins. Not to hide. To prepare. She buried one crate. Laced the trail with wire. Then waited on the porch with the coin around her neck. Adrian stood beside her, pistol holstered. Dusk came. And so did Daniel. He walked out of the tree line alone. No weapon. No fear. I told you to meet me, he said. Cassie stepped forward. You're already here. Daniel smirked. You found the vault. Saw the truth. Good for you. What do you want? He didn't blink. What was stolen from my family? Cassie raised the coin. They didn't steal it. Your grandfather sold it out. Then tried to burn the evidence. He failed. Daniel's face darkened. You think that land makes you righteous? No, Cassie said. But it gives me leverage. Adrian stepped forward. Leave. While you still can. Daniel laughed. You don't get it. I don't care about courts. Or titles. I want blood. He raised his arm. A flare. From the forest, 3 men stepped out. Gasoline cans. Matches. Cassie didn't flinch. Check the clearing, she said. You'll find what you're looking for. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Gestured. 1 man ran ahead. Seconds passed. Then, boom. The earth shook. The clearing lit up in fire and shrapnel. The buried crate, rigged. Daniel stumbled backward. Cassie leveled the shotgun. Next one's not a warning. Daniel's men fled. He stood there, shaking, lips curled. You think this ends tonight? Cassie stepped closer. No. It ends in court. I've got the deed, the files, and the proof your grandfather was a traitor. You come near this land again. She chambered a shell. You'll vanish like the chapel did. Daniel turned. Melted into the woods. But not before muttering, you don't even know what they really left behind. And just like that, he was gone. Back inside, Adrian slumped into a chair. You just declared war on a man with no rules. Cassie nodded. Good. He looked up. Why fight so hard for land that was never yours? Cassie stared out the window. Because it's mine now. Because they believed in me. And because this land remembers what people like Daniel forget. She pulled the coin from her neck and hung it above the mantel. This isn't over, she whispered. But we're ready. The coin turned in Cassie's hand as she descended into the earth, 1 step at a time. The vault was behind her. The mural deeper. But beneath it, far beneath it, was something she hadn't seen. Until now. She and Adrian stood in front of the fresco. The painted tree. The bleeding heart. The linen-wrapped figure under the roots. The land remembers. Cassie pressed the coin into the stone beneath the heart. A click. Then a groan. The mural shifted, not swung, but sank into the wall, revealing a narrow stone arch, barely tall enough to crawl through. She lit the lantern. I'm going. Adrian grabbed her wrist. No. We do this together. Inside, the tunnel curved like a ribcage. Roots pushed through the ceiling like bony fingers. The air smelled old. Older than wood smoke, older than stone. Like memory. After 40 yards, the tunnel widened. They emerged into a cavern, circular, domed, hollowed by hand or by time. Lantern light flickered over walls lined with shelves. Books. Journals. Ledgers. Cassie picked one. Dated 1954. Inside, a record of names, dates, locations. Then she saw the heading. Operation Roots. The Cole family hadn't just guarded gold. They had preserved records, confessions, experiments, government failures. Information scrubbed from history. What the hell is this? Adrian whispered. Cassie opened another. A transcript. Project Dusk, Vermont 1952. 14 subjects. 3 survivors. All sealed. All buried. She turned to him. Your grandfather wasn't just protecting the land. He was burying the country's sins. Adrian stared at the opposite wall. A stone slab. Chains still bolted to the floor. And beneath it, something was carved. A lie told enough times becomes a grave. Cassie backed away. Then they heard the voice. I told you, it said from the darkness, you don't even know what they left behind. Daniel stepped from the shadows. No gun this time. Just a knife in his hand and madness in his eyes. You want to protect the land. You don't even know what's in it. Cassie raised the lantern. You followed us. He smiled. You left the coin hanging on the wall like a trophy. Amateur mistake. Adrian stepped in front of her. It's over. The court will take this. Not you. Daniel chuckled. You still think this is about courts? He stepped forward. You think my grandfather was the villain. But he tried to destroy this place because he saw what they buried. They weren't patriots. They were monsters. He pointed at the slab. 14 children. War orphans. They brought them here. Tested how much isolation a mind could survive before breaking. Called it a resilience experiment. Cassie froze. That's not in the reports. Daniel laughed. Of course not. But my grandfather knew. One of the children escaped. And he swore he'd never let this cave breathe again. Adrian stepped back. Then why are you here? Daniel's face twisted. To finish what he started. He tossed the lighter. It hit the floor. Fuel lit the walls. Cassie screamed as flame rolled up the shelves. Adrian tackled Daniel. The knife slashed. Cassie grabbed a beam from the ground and swung. Daniel crumpled. Bleeding. Smoke swallowed the room. Go. Adrian shouted. No. He pushed her toward the tunnel. There's only one way out. I'll hold him. She hesitated, then ran. The tunnel trembled. Behind her, a gunshot. Then silence. Cassie clawed through the passage, lungs on fire. She burst into the vault and slammed the hidden wall shut. Ran up the ladder. Threw open the well cover and gasped into the cold night air. The house stood silent. The woods still. Adrian wasn't with her. She waited till sunrise. Then went back down. The chamber was gone. Collapsed. Charred. And empty. No body. No sign of Daniel. No Adrian. Just ash. A week passed. Authorities came. Took the reports. Took the crates. Took the story and wrapped it in legal silence. They asked her questions. She gave them answers. But not all of them. She kept the coin. Kept the map. And the one journal she never showed them, Project Dusk. Adrian was declared missing. Daniel was never found. Some said they died together. Some said only one did. Cassie never spoke of it. But the nightmares stayed. And the coin never left her neck. 3 months later, Cassie opened the Root Fund, a land trust preserving legacy properties tied to Cold War history. Quiet. Understated. Funded by anonymous donations. Locals said she lived like a widow for a man no one proved dead. One night, after filing her last legal brief, Cassie walked into a quiet diner off Highway 7. Ordered coffee. Watched as a young waitress bent down beside an old man fumbling for his wallet. "It's all right," the girl said. "Happens to the best of us." She smiled. Slid her card. Cassie watched in silence. Then stood. Left a folded note on her table. Inside. "The land remembers. Keep it safe." And a gold coin with a pine tree pressed into the edge. Spring arrived late in Vermont that year. The snow didn't melt, it retreated, as if it knew something darker had taken root beneath it. Cassie walked the land every morning. 32 acres of pine and silence. The chapel was gone. The barn a hollow memory. The house stood rebuilt, frame by frame, not to erase what had happened, but to preserve it. She kept the bullet-scarred mantel. Never replaced the cracked floorboard in the hallway. Some damage, she believed, deserved to remain visible. She lived alone. No husband. No Adrian. His body never found. No funeral. No grave. Only his name carved into the stone beneath the sugar maple tree, where his parents rested. Cassie knelt there every Sunday. Not to pray. To remember. Because the land did. The root fund grew quickly, too quickly. Quiet investors. Anonymous donors. People who understood the value of land that held stories too dangerous for museums. Families came forward. Survivors. Descendants. Cassie listened, collected their accounts, archived every word. But she never spoke of the cave. Or of Project Dusk. That part she kept for herself. One evening, she returned from a local board meeting to find a package at her doorstep. No postage. Just a wax seal pressed into the flap. She opened it on the kitchen table. Inside, a photograph. Black and white. Grainy. 4 men. 1 woman. Young. Armed. Standing outside the coal house. Behind them, a tree with a strange carving. A symbol she recognized from the coin. She flipped it over. 1952, the 5. No explanation. No return address. Cassie lit a fire. Watched the flames. Then fed the photo to them. Some truths don't belong in files. That summer, wildfires tore across the West. Someone tried to burn a similar vault in Montana. But locals stopped them. Said they had learned from Vermont. Cassie's name never made the papers. She preferred it that way. One day, a man in a suit knocked on her door. Government issue. Polished. Polite. "We'd like to talk about the vault." Cassie handed him a cup of coffee. Sat him down on the porch. And didn't say a word for 45 minutes. Just stared at the woods. Eventually, he left. Some doors don't open twice. Years passed. The land grew green again. The wild came back. Deer returned. Owls. A bear once sniffed her porch. She didn't mind. The woods respected her. And she, them. But every so often, someone came. Someone who'd heard the rumors. About the woman who inherited gold for a meal. About the billionaire who vanished. About the treasure under the roots. Cassie never answered questions. But if they were kind. If they looked lost. She'd give them coffee. And sometimes, a folded map. Marked with a tree. On the last day of August, she walked into town for groceries. Same small market. Same crooked aisle. At checkout, she spotted the clerk whispering to a young woman in an apron. "Guy in the back's causing trouble. Says he doesn't have cash. Wants to talk to the owner." Cassie turned. An old man. Shoes falling apart. Pants 2 sizes too big. He was clutching a can of soup like it was sacred. The girl behind the counter didn't hesitate. "It's on me," she said, swiping her card. "No need to make a scene." The old man stammered. Eyes wide. "I didn't mean to." "It's okay," she smiled. "Happens to the best of us." Cassie froze. She stared at the girl. Young. Tired eyes. But something in her posture, humble, certain, without audience, struck deep. Cassie stepped outside. She sat on the bench, sunlight on her face. And wept. Not loudly. Not broken. But with the quiet ache of someone who had carried too much for too long. She wiped her eyes. Stood. Went back inside. And left something behind at the register. A coin. Pine tree etched in gold. And a folded note. "You gave without expecting. That matters. Keep this safe. The land remembers." She walked out without a word. And the girl stood there, holding the weight of something she didn't yet understand. But one day, she would. Write in the comments where you're from. Let's see how far these stories can spread. And of course, subscribe so you don't miss new exciting stories. See you soon.